My expectation right now would be that the Minnesota Vikings will not use the franchise tag on anyone. That means Sam Darnold would have a freeway to free agency and would have a chance to test his value on the market. And I get the next question, of course, is why wouldn't they tag him? $40 million, it would give them a chance to create an insurance policy for themselves going into 2025. And I think there are a couple of reasons for it. Number one, I think the tag would probably make it more difficult, not less difficult, to get a deal done. That number, $40 million, unless you're willing to give Sam Darnold a contract at $45 million per year with a guarantee approaching $100 million, be really hard to find common ground. And so if you aren't willing to go to that number, or that number is above, where you value the player, then you're either saying we're either going to overpay him or we're just going to have that lump sum on our books for this year. And there was some merit to the idea of doing that. But I think ultimately they come to the decision that they value him a certain way, and allowing him to go to the market, and maybe he gets a Baker Mayfield type of deal, which, by the way, is significantly less than where the franchise tag is. And then they hope that he'll come back to them with whatever offer he has and maybe be willing to work something out. So that's number one. Then number two, if you tag him with the intention of trading him or wanting to trade him, it's really tough to count on doing that unless you have a deal worked out ahead of time. And based on some of the conditions of the market right now, I think it would be difficult for the Vikings to work out a deal where you would trade Sam Darnold on the franchise tag, and then another team is willing to go to those higher numbers, the $45 or $50 million a year range, to get him signed long term. You'd be talking about another team then giving up an asset plus a huge contract to get Sam Darnold in, when they know that it's less likely that they tag him. Then it, like you look at it, if you're the other team, it's like, yeah, we'll just sit and wait. And they probably aren't going to tag him, and Sam will make it to the market. So that's why they are where they are. Now, does this mean Sam Darnold is done with the Vikings? I do not think so. I think you have to look at the landscape here and where the Vikings are and where Sam Darnold is. I think the Vikings would love to have Sam Darnold back in 2025 and give themselves some insurance at that position. I think, if you're Sam, you look at it and say, like, yes, I want to go to a place where I can be the next quarterback for the next 5 or 10 years. And if that opportunity exists, then great. But if it doesn't, the Minnesota Vikings are a good place, a good environment for a quarterback to be in, a good team to play with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison, and Christian Darrisaw coming back to solidify that offensive line. And they've got some money to play with to maybe shore up the interior of that offensive line. And they've got a good defense coming back. So for Sam, that makes some sense. And then for the Vikings, I think you look at this, and a lot of it for me is where your team is. They like a lot of things that J.J. McCarthy brings to the table. J.J. did enough over the summer to push Sam and to really make it a discussion point before he got hurt there in August. And wasn't really part of the plan ahead of time, but he had done enough to really make them ask the question whether or not it would be right to play McCarthy at some point over the course of the year. That said, he did go through 2 knee surgeries. Now, the second one was just a cleanup. It wasn't the full-on repair they went through the last time, but they did go through a cleanup surgery. And J.J. McCarthy did lose some weight. So, I think some of the question, if you're the Vikings, is, do we know what we're getting with J.J. McCarthy right now, or are we projecting? Is he going to be able to get back to his fighting weight in time for OTAs, in time for training camp? Are we going to be able to put him out there and, and have him in position to give the other veterans on the team the sort of product at the position that they got last year? And that's an open question as well. And that's a tough one to answer because, again, he lost 4 months of development time. He did lose some weight. That's, again, a question you've got to ask if you're the Vikings, because this is a team that won 14 games last year. This isn't a rebuilding team where you can say, okay, like, we're going to, sink some time into his development this year and we're going to ride out the bumps. And if, he does feel the effects of having lost all that development time, having lost that weight, well, that's okay. No, this is a team with a lot of accomplished veterans: Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, Jonathan, Grenard on the other side of the ball, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner going into year 2. We'll see if Harrison Smith's back. There's a lot of good veteran players that, are looking for you to give them the best answer possible at that position. And that's why you try to get Sam Darnold back, because that gives you some certainty at the position. And if it's not Sam, I'd expect there to be somebody else in there. Maybe it's Daniel Jones coming back, where you do have a solid insurance policy. So again, like, they really love JJ McCarthy in a lot of different ways. He traveled with them starting in October, so he was around a bunch, and he did get to do some of the non-physical learning. But coming back off the surgery, like there are those boxes that you have to check, and that's not JJ's fault. Like, that's just part of the process of getting back there. And what I think the Vikings feel like they've got to give their team at the quarterback position.